Today we'll be talking about Eazkeyia and the greater Eazkian cultures that have evolved from older empires and lands, starting with the look at the modern-day Eazkish border. As originally, the Eazkish have originally had this area over here, over this line, which is the road. They then decided to capture what's on this side from some other territories held by some other micro kingdoms that were put. Today, these are comprised of the modern day borders of Joland, Eazkeyia, Bennett, Targaria, Skitzo Landers, and Royal, Tolman, and Jesseland. The ones to the west, or the ones that could touch to the west, such as Targaria, Eazkeyia, Joland, and Bennett, are ruled by separate rulers. Eazkeyia is ruled by the Eazkian people, the people who inhabit this land. Sorry about that. After the fall of another kingdom that was kind of right here with their borders mostly lying like this, as they as the people who once lived here pushed these Targaryens here like that, with them ruling this specific area, as this was considered the Malevillion lands after the war that caused the that was made to oust to oust the High King of Toman and the Emperor of Eazkeyia. The slaves that were in the region that would be known as Targaria, they decided to rebel due to the lack of action by the Emperor, who seldomly cared for the Empire. And with that spurred the greater Malevillion rule that came to overtake the land, with those backing them being the Empress Charlotte and another king and the lord of Wyatt, who lost his territory after he lost contact with the Empire. And that's been the small state of Targaria, which consisted being around the this river region right here. Damn, I really fucked up the border sightings. Yes, the river regions right here, they took over about right there. That was the original border. But they then took over, instated Empress Charlotte, and things went good as time went to making the more things sustained of the empire, building up the economy as such as it could. And with the more integrated actions, the southern areas around some other place ruled by a high lord, then they decided to invade and conquer what would be called the Crystal Territory, which in the modern day, which this is the modern day look of the borders, will be considered as the Crystal Empire, or the Crystal Kingdom, ruled by Charlotte after she was, the Emperor, he decided to overthrow her and retake his throne. Well, he succeeds, and Emperor Charlotte gets ousted and exiled to where, then she decides to form her own kingdom as she fled the crystal territories, splitting those territories in half to the Charlotte realm of the crystals. And Charlottesville would be quite literally torn with it being under Ptolemaic rule. Ptolemaic rule until Isaiah decides setting up the Isaian borders. Before this was taken, the Isaian borders realized Broughton. Right here were the Isaian borders originally. But then this territory, eastward of that line, that blue line, was then taken over and conquered. And then Isaiah originally got like this land, and each to a small bit, including the Skitches that rule that small part above Bennett. But then, the Isaians, they decided to allow some guy to try to overthrow their government and the Eazkish government, thus making the modern day borders of their modern Isaians. As the Skitzo Landers get new territory northward, Targaryens moving southward, even southwest eastward, into the former Isaian lands. The current High King of Isaiah land, he does not feel too happy about it. But what you gonna do? You support a rebellion against the main rulers who went to the ousting. And at the time, they also tried to secede from Eazkeyia, forming an Isaian kingdom of sorts. But they failed in their endeavors. And when it became Christmas of 2001, the Emperor of Eazkeyia and the High King of Isaiah land decided to meet and instigate peace back into the ruling empire. Isaiah would not be tried as a terrorist to the kingdom or a traitor, and he would keep his current lands and keep his position, and not to be exiled, or you will booted over into different lands. And that led up to the partitioning of Isaiah's kingdomist lands, including the Bennett, who got a piece at one point. The Bennets were a newcomer to the empire, as ruled over by Raleigh Rebel. He decided to become High King of Bennett, making greater things and strides for the Eazkish. And over here, where the Emperor of Ptolemaic, or the main Emperor of Eazkeyia was, he started to go back into his slum, and then decided by the tribunal of Royal Skitzo Landers in Targaryia, decided to oust Izzy as the Emperor of Eazkeyia. Actually, I think I could show you him. Yes. This is the Emperor of Eazkeyia. And he was a fighter for lots, and the founder. And then, in early summer of 2023, the emperor that was instated of royal Cody Elder, he decided to make slavery illegal in the land. So the ones that mostly got rid of slavery, the ones that practiced it, the Tomen, the Skitzo Landers, the Eazkians, and the aquareons, have decided to end slavery, making the slaves that were there this free to do any of their exploits. But in some parts, the memo was not really gotten, as the High King of Eazkeyia Land was sued by the main house of Eazkeyia for continuing with his personal slave. Finally decided to let him go and stopped brutalizing them. And that leads to the modern day, where the Eazkish economy kind of fails. But early on, this was where the Eazkish came from. An empire called the on the Malevillion Empire, right there. The Eazkish that came to rule were on the north side. They were given their territory, as such, granted by the Emperor of Malevillion, which stood from the capital here. Yes. The Malevillions began their rule in their state, that here. After over here, they've decided to conquer the aquareons, and they decided to free the slaves that were held by those aquareons, and to use them to conquer off the territories, as they decided to invade inward, and freeing some right here, and taking this region, which was the capital, causing this land right here to fall. In December 2020, the Malevillion Empire started to look more like this. With a few states outwards rife in their stuff, such as the Skitzo Landers, Snake Landers, the Wolfang Kingdom, Football Kingdom, and the aquarian kingdoms, and some early starting Eazkish, as well as the Mark's Kingdom, and the overlords of Don Vert and Horatio kingdoms. The Malevillions would decide to invade northward and westward into these kingdoms, mostly capturing the Aquareons, the Skitzo Landers, where here is where the battle of Tommy Town was fought, as then they made the push here, knocking out here and fully securing this piece of the creek. Now, the creek is very important, as right here in this area, there is a cliff. And if you hold that cliff, you can quite literally halt progress through this side of the creek. Or, if there's something going on over here and you have a good balance, you could quite literally collapse the entire east of thine empire. And that was what happened one time, but we're getting to there. So the Malevillions that have captured this area decided to invade the other area, with them capturing the entire south of what would be considered the Malevillion Empire. That was very important, because they could then squeeze the northern kingdoms, with the invasion going up north into Horatio land, where they decided to take it after the Horatians decided to sue for peace and work alongside, as well as the Marx Kingdomers deciding to join up with the Malevillions, where they then pushed here, where they found others that were brutalizing their own people. They were quite literally using the people of those kingdoms as slaves. And then they decided to invade the area to knock that out. And when the dust settled, the decision was to take up the lands, and the Eazkish would be giving their controlling land, as they were present there right when it is the vast creek was mostly big and important, as it took up the area, leading to a north-south divide. But the creek was mainly important because it was used as a road. Easily could stomp through into other places unsighted for tons of reasons, especially in this area right here, where it's heavily wooded and it would be hard to do much, because you would have to actually walk across out of what would be considered Malleyville, then back into what is considered Malleyville to get up here, and you would have to walk from here across this, because there is no way to get across that. So the creek mostly ensures this area right here as well. It's a good way to get across this side. Mostly the creek, although dividing the north and the south, ended up uniting the north and the south. Now, Eazkeyia and a few others were fine, such as the Wolfang Kingdom, but there were some, such as the Horatios, that decided to double back on what they said. Thus, in this area where I said there was a cliff, they decided to set a rebellion, where a few Malevillion troops waltzed in through the creek on this point. There sat a Horatian archer that shot an arrow down, securing the area. Quite literally securing the area. So the soldiers had to march all around through the area and into out of Malevillion into Malevillion to get to that side to then take out the archer and prison, as well as quell the rebellions, thus making it as it was the somewhat area. But just consider at this time, this was what Malevillion looked like, with the invasion downward into this area of the Americas to take over this place, making it united, as well as gaining an ally around here, making a newer kingdom that would be added. But because of such things, he would be given south of it. He'll be the ruler of the South City Kingdom, his domain as the governor. But it was also pretty well as the Malevillions used the rivers to go in that way and to go this way, to go seek and find newer places to harvest newer resources. But one day, the emperor was gone. There was no Malevillion emperor. So one man who was the Malevillion soldier, he decided to become ruler of the area, but not like a monarch. He became the dictator. But like I said, Malevillion Empire was a short-lived, only lasting in 2022 and 2019. From the starting rise to the full destruction, left the raiders from the aquareons, as the aquareons chased off the dictator out of what was considered Malevillion, and causing the Eazkish to exit out of Malevillion to their new home here, where they did not rule such areas before. Like I've said, they did rule at first this small area until they moved up north, then eastward. But also, in early summer of 2023, those aquarians of this region would leave Malevillion to head to Eazkeyia to capture slaves for fighting in battle against the other Sunday Creek kingdoms, because the aquareons did not have a good amount of population to send to war, so they captured slaves for war, and they were exceedingly crushed by the Eazkish. But afterwards, the Eazkians would follow down all the way to the Crystal Kingdom to conquer it, as they were expansionists, not the rest of the empire. Just the Eazkiic went down to conquer the Crystal Kingdom, where they were permanently crushed by Charlotte's small army of 2, as they made Isaiah's army of 4 just fall back, thus crushing that spark of revolution and conquest, protecting their lands successfully. And in the late summer of 2023, the Emperor Cody of Isaiah Land would marry a lady name of Morgan, where she would become Empress of Eazkeyia, the first Empress and Emperor of Eazkeyia, ruling side by side, as originally there were just an emperor and an empress separately, without no other rulers to the point. Now, in this other segment, we will be talking about Eazkish items that were found at certain points, and an old Malevillion knife. This right here is an old an old 100-year-old Malevillion knife used for cutting and stripping from what seems it was made from a piece of flattened can metal that was then attached to a stick, with them having it stuck on by a tang, where it would then be pegged by 2 wooden pegs, and the stick that held it covered in some type of lacquer to keep it nice and last longer. Over here is a stone spear point from Eazkish Landers that was used alongside some.
You don't have to love racing to love Gran Turismo.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Really
we got something going on. This right here is an Eazkish arrow point made from a penny found near the railroad. This was found near a railroad, where they've cut it and they've decided to carve in 2 notches inward. This would be hafted on to a stick like this. They'd combine that word and then this, wrapping it tightly and possibly gluing it on. This was found in the Targaryen region, right near the town of Charlottesville, where they would have found such. Yes. Those are such that were found later. As this right here, what the picture of the emperor is holding is a box shield made out of 2 plies of wood with the crest of Eazkeyia on it, as it would be had. The crest would have 2 black spotted coyotes on 2 sides, with the crown above and the symbol in the central, as well as a Eazkish curved handle sword wrapped in black lacquer, as well as the coat. The coats were used for the winters and did apply some level of protection. But that was that. Now we're moving on to the armor. And these are flags of 3 territories in Eazkeyia: Bennett, Isaiah Land, and Joe Land. This right here is a sandstone blade point from the Eazkish lands, as Eazkeyia in their western desert region has lots of sandstone. This was hafted on to a broken stick that would have been used as a spear point, used pretty badly to mess up people. This right here was a sandstone axe that worked pretty well with the against wood and was used in war. This right here is in fact the oldest tip area of an Eazkish spear found, used in the in 2018. This right here was called an azutul, but you would call it an maquahuitl based on the wooden type build as stone blades. But this is different from a maquahuitl, as it's made with stones not perfectly cut, because these were made to be like saws. Now what would happen is you would hit someone with the sharp points and pull out like a saw. You'd kind of saw chunks off their body. And sometimes there'd be a tip point added to stab and poke. These were pretty brutal and finishable, but oftentimes weak, as stones would also be forcefully put in and stuck into the bodies of those who would be hit with it. Now this right here dates to the 2005, is a saw made with a chunk of wood made out of a flattened piece of metal with some carved in blade tips. These were pretty good for being used to kind of saw off woods and stuff, albeit a bit weak. But it was also useful in war sometimes, as they'd use it to carve in people's bodies, which led to the stone azutul being made to replicate these crude saws that were used brutally. That ends the weapons portion of such. I am incredibly sorry we do not have any images of the armor.
Cleveland.